Okay, so let's get started on the second part of paper 2, Elizabethan England from 1568 to 1603. So here is the content that you need to know for any of the questions that might come up. There's 4 parts to it. Part 1, Elizabeth's court and parliament. Part 2, life in Elizabethan times. Part 3, troubles at home and abroad. Part 4, the historic environment of Elizabethan England, which changes every year, and this year the focus is on hard recall. So once again, pause this and look at the content specification clearly, carefully, thinking about where you feel confident, thinking about which areas that you know you need to go over. There are 4 questions for this section. How convincing is this interpretation about whatever it might be? We'll look at some examples. But once again, masses of questions here that you can practice, banks of questions that you can just pause the video at any time and have a go doing in time conditions. Time conditions, we know, again, number of marks plus a quarter of the marks gives us how long to spend on it. So for an 8-mark question, we're now going to spend 10 minutes on it. And notice that the first 3 questions are all 8-mark questions. So that's half an hour for the first 3 questions. Then question 4, the big question, the essay question, is 16 marks. So we're going to spend 20 minutes on that. It's a 5-part plan again. We're going to use Peel, you can see, for every single answer that comes up. We're going to use Peel to write our answer. Question 2, explain what was important about X in Elizabethan times. Question 3, write an account of. And then question 4, looking at the historical environment. The main reason for X was Y. Look at some examples of that. So let's look at the first question now. How convincing is this interpretation about whatever it might be? Let's look at the specific example. How convincing is this interpretation about Elizabeth's early life for 8 marks? So with this question, 10 minutes, 2 Peel paragraphs. We want to always do a WWWPAF, taking our time to do this. What's it about? What's about Elizabeth's early life? When was it created? 1993, a long time after Elizabeth's early life. That's important, that's interesting. And who created it? We have the name of the historian here. What's the purpose of it? Who would the audience be? And what's the format? It's often going to be a written source, but you will see that it can sometimes be a picture source as well. So with this structure, once we've done WWWPAF, we can get down to writing the 2 Peel paragraphs. We just said the source might be visual or written. We're going to focus in our answer on content, what it says in detail, breaking it down, deconstructing it. Context, what is the situation in which it was written, the background to it. It's a historian writing in 1993, the context to it. The provenance, who created it, thinking about their motivations for writing it, producing the source. And as always, with all of these source-based questions, we always bring in our own knowledge to support the points that we make. 2 Peel paragraphs, probably a good idea to focus on what is convincing about it. What is it within the interpretation that ties in with your understanding of Elizabeth's early life? Keep rereading the question carefully, so totally focus on answering it. And for your second Peel paragraph, what is unconvincing about the source? How does it not fit into your understanding about Elizabeth's early life? What can you bring in terms of your own knowledge that could expose an aspect of the interpretation that you think isn't necessarily wrong? Maybe it is, or maybe you just think they haven't put enough emphasis on this aspect of, in this case, in this question, her early life, Elizabeth's early life. But maybe the historian hasn't considered a certain part of her life and how influential it was. They haven't taken into account this. So that's something else that you can talk about in terms of unconvincing. So for each of these practice questions, stop it, pause it, read the interpretation, think about what you would say is convincing, think about what you would say is unconvincing. If you're not going to write the whole question in 10 minutes, just do your points for each of your pure paragraphs. This source, or sorry, this interpretation, technically speaking we should say interpretation, about Elizabeth's early life is convincing in that it shows, or that it recognizes, okay, then your second pure paragraph point. However, this interpretation is unconvincing in analyzing, describing Elizabeth's early life, because it doesn't take into account this. So practice writing your pure paragraphs. Here are some more examples. In this case, David Starkey in the Elizabeth documentary shown in 2000, year 2000 on Channel 4. How convincing is this interpretation about Elizabeth's early life? Think again about what you would write as convincing about it. What is unconvincing? What is it that Starkey has not taken into account? Is there an oversight perhaps? Sometimes it's a bit harder to come up with unconvincing, but you can just think about the emphasis that is being put on different parts of the history. In this case, Elizabeth's early life. Where is there an emphasis? Is it overemphasized? Or is there something that has not been considered that you could then use as an opportunity to really showcase your own knowledge? Once again, pause at these different questions and have a go at answering them. Practice, even if we said you're not answering them, you're still practicing with 2 points for your 2